A little story to start with. It occurred maybe 20 years or so ago. My good friend Kathy and I were out for our daily exercise. I don't remember if we were still running at that point or we might have been already walking. And Kathy was kind of on the fringes of Unity. She would attend our local center in Cedar Rapids when I was guest speaking there. It's before I came to the ministerial program here. So we're walking along, and she says to me, "What does Unity teach about Easter?" Well, I was at the ready. Unity teaches that we cross out negative thinking. She stopped in her tracks and looked at me and said, "Well, what does that mean?" I thought to myself in that very moment, it is time for me to get a very deep understanding of Easter. In our center, with our then minister, we had a big handmade wooden cross that we hauled up to the platform, and it had styrofoam and mesh on it. And we had little plastic flowers that at some point in the service we would walk up and stick our plastic flower in the styrofoam and get an affirmation. And so what I knew was the bumper sticker, well, we're crossing out negative thinking. In that getting clear, it took quite a while, actually, and it took a lot of studies. Of course, I was taking classes here at the village through a spiritual enrichment program. And ultimately, over time, the Easter story came down to metaphysics for me, the metaphysics of it. We have a group that I host. We meet once a month. We just have had one session. We have another one coming up this coming week called Meta-Musings. And so, of course, in our first session, we talk about what is metaphysics. Well, the study of the divine, the study of human nature, the study of what's under life, what's behind life, what's behind this relative earthly realm that we can see, taste, touch, and feel. Years ago, when I was teaching a metaphysics course, I was making, I'm so artful, I was making a masterful graphic of the absolute realm and the divine, absolute divine realm and the relative earthly realm, which consisted of two big circles on a board, and they intersected. As I was making that graphic, it occurred to me this space, this intersection, is metaphysics. It is the bridge that connects the divine realm, unchanging, Godland, divine mind, principle, law. And we exist in that realm, and sort of between us and that realm is our veil, our earthly veil. And this last Saturday in our new member class, which I believe next week in the annual meeting we'll be welcoming 10 new members to UVC that have chosen, here's what I call membership. When somebody was asking what is the meaning of it. And so we talked about that in the group. And I said, for me, membership is putting my stake in the ground for my spiritual community. I'm here to stand for you. I am here to walk beside you on your spiritual journey. And guess what? I expect you to do the same with me. To stand for me, to know the truth for me, to walk with me in the journey. So we had this question come up in our new member group. Is Unity Christian? I mean, that's a whole talk series waiting to happen. We had a great conversation about it. I was very impressed with the skill in which people articulated their viewpoint. What is Christianity? Is unity Christian? So I feel like this topic today is rich. I feel like the time is right for us to go down the proverbial Easter rabbit hole. And here's my favorite bumper sticker. I think I wrote it. I think I made it up. My favorite bumper sticker about Easter, it ain't about the bunny. So remember that as we talk today. I'm referring to the familiar, I think, to many of us, Bible stories of what has now become known as the Easter story. And of course, there's a ton of context to it. I will fly over that by saying, think about the lens of the political times. Think about the lens of the rule of the Roman government over the Jewish people. Think about the Jewish high priests who kowtowed to the Roman rule so that they could hang on to their cushy existence. And then we have this Jesus, who was a Jew, he was Jewish, and he was saying some really radical stuff. It was rattling the high priests, rattling the Roman leaders. Today, let's take a look at three of what I call the main elements of the Easter story. Crucifixion, sound familiar? Tomb time, doesn't get a lot of airtime, by the way, and rising up. Let's start with crosses and crucifixions. Conservative Christians teach that Jesus died on the cross to save us from our sins. Jesus is the blood of the Lamb, the ultimate sacrifice. So I just want to invite you to open up some space in consciousness with what we may have been raised in our belief systems, what we hear other people say about it, and I'd invite us to turn it inside out and see the Easter story with our metaphysical lens. I want to clarify, I am not here to dispute anyone's beliefs about Jesus, about the Easter story. I'm not here to disagree with anyone. I'm not here to say this view is right and that view is wrong. So with that disclaimer, what say we about the meaning of the cross? What say we about the crucifixion? Here's my new thought about that. I do not believe that Jesus came to earth to show us how to die. I have a minister friend years ago that said, when we were talking about what is the meaning of Easter, and she said, well, good Lord, if I die in a car crash, I don't want my kids walking around with a crumpled up car stapled to a cross. I don't want them to remember me in the crumpled up car. I want them to remember how I lived. And I believe that is what Jesus came to teach us. I believe Jesus' life demonstrated how we can live. And these writings and all the stories, of course, have variances. These writings of Jesus' life show us how to move through crucifixions, rest in our tomb time, and to rise up. How many of us feel like we've experienced at least one crucifixion experience in our lifetime? Several of us. How many? I mean, we could go on in the numbers, but some of us one, some of us many more than one. We each have our own experience of it. And on some level, each of us goes through the trials of life every day. We are in the experience of what life brings to us. Have you ever had the thought when you're moving through a crucifixion and you may not have realized at the time that that's what it was about? Have you ever had the thought, this might actually kill me? I might actually just go under. Anyone remember the story of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane in the 11th hour, on his knees and praying, please take this cup from me? Kind of like, pick anybody but me. So the truth is, our crucifixions have not yet killed us. That's the good news. What are some of our crosses to bear? Lack of love, lack of deep, meaningful relationship, lack of physical, mental well-being. Oh, how about unworthiness? Anybody carry that cross ever? Shame, judgment. We tote around our crosses of judgment, sometimes quite piously and righteously. And as my beloved mentor, my Martha Creek, has said to me many, many times, well, honey, there's just no shortage of curriculum, is there? No shortage of curriculum. So these crosses, can everybody identify some of your own crosses? Can you kind of mentally and physically get in touch with that? These crosses, it appears to me, are an integral part of our skin suit journey. I don't think we get out of these suits without a cross or two, without some tomb time. I think that they are actually necessary parts of our spiritual evolution. So the question becomes, how do we use our crucifixions? How do we use our crucifixions for our own spiritual enlightenment, for our own spiritual evolution? And I ask this. I think it's a big question. I ask this because from my lens, that's what Jesus demonstrated in his crucifixion. Remember the words, forgive them, for they know not what they do. How can we use our crucifixions? Because I think as spiritual travelers, I think it's up to us, first of all, to see our crosses. I can see Nita's cross, large as life. The other scripture about, I'm talking to you about the splinter in your eye when I got this big gargantuan thing sticking out of my eye. I can see crosses. People talk to me about crosses, but sometimes we don't see our own so clearly. I think we need to see them. We need to name them. And here's news. I think we need to tote them around as long as we need to, as long as necessary. Because along the way, when we're toting our crosses, we are seeking guidance. What is in this for me? What is for me? This too is for me. And we seek guidance about knowing when to say when. We seek guidance about knowing when to lay down our crosses. And you know that moment? You know that moment of laying it down and thinking, made it through that, that's over. Well, then what happens? Then what happens? Through this study of figuring out what Easter is, I got to the point where I feel like I got this. And so I called a very dear friend of mine. He was in the ministerial education program in the year ahead of me. His name was Lance Livesey. He has since left this realm. So I said, Lance, can we go have coffee? Because I figured out some really cool stuff about Easter. So we went to this great little bookshop, and we had coffee, and I'm laying out my story, and I'm laying out the understanding of it, and I get all done. I was feeling a little proud of my spiritual evolution and my great wisdom. And he looks at me and says, but what about tomb time? I said, well, we'll have to have another coffee then. What about tomb time? We descend to the dark, dark, still place, our inner tomb, where we have the opportunity to process these events, process our response to them, our thoughts and feelings and beliefs about them. We integrate our crucifixion experience at a soul level. For as long as it takes. When I hit the crash and burn wall in ministry and finally just went under, I think it was probably a good 2 years, the tomb time, of getting understanding about what is that experience. If I felt like a failure. I felt like a failure, like can't be a minister. So for as long as it takes, we contemplate our trials, our crucifixions. And here's a little caution sign as we're going into tomb time. It is not a time of looking at ourselves, self-flagellating, self-blaming. Here's what's wrong with me. Here's what I did wrong. It's not about that. It's not about ignoring our part in it, certainly. But it's not about blaming ourselves. It's about coming to an understanding of where our consciousness was at that point. And now we're along the spiritual continuum, and we can look back and go, oh, that was about boundaries. Oh, that was about asking for help. Ministers don't need help, right? Because they're so damn spiritual and so evolved and so equipped. So we look at it, we integrate it, we understand it from the point of looking at the event as a neutral. The event is neutral. What are our thoughts, feelings? What's our story about that? And once we have an understanding there, we dig for that deeper metaphysical meaning. And once we've tuned into the metaphysics of our crucifixion, we rest. We're not rushing this. Here's what I understand about rushing it. We get to do it again later on a deeper level. So I say, let's wring everything we can out of our crucifixion. Let's bring all of the juice that is meant for us in our tomb time. In the Bible stories, Jesus' crucifixion happened in a day. Anybody sailed through a crucifixion in less than 24 hours? I'm getting a couple of no way. Anybody been in the tomb for just a couple days, couple nights? So what's that about, that Jesus story? Well, I say hats off to Jesus. Because if he can do crucifixion in a day, if he can do tomb time in a couple of days and a couple of nights, wow, that's a demonstration. I think we know that in our human realm, in our current consciousness, that it takes as long as it takes. It takes us longer. And the time of the journey, no set time, because it's unique to our individual spiritual trek. So thinking about this experience, maybe some of us are in it now, maybe some can recall a fairly recent one. Have we committed ourselves to wringing out all that we can from what life brings? This too is for me. This is mine. This is mine to understand. This is mine to know. So my little stake on the Easter hill is, I don't think Easter is about anyone saving us. Unless we attribute those life lessons from Jesus as saving us in our way to live. We have beloveds that witness our crucifixion, they witness our tomb time, but they can't take it from us. They can't carry it for us. And maybe one of the messages in minister education should be, the only cross you can carry, honey, is yours, okay? So let's get that straight from the get-go. Easter is not a spectator sport. We are not on the sidelines reading about something that happened a few thousand years ago. We are in it. We are in it. We are walking it. We are breathing it. We are living it. It's not somebody else's story. The Easter story is my story. It's your story. It's our story. Out in the ethers, y'all, it's your story. And it's up close and in your face, is it not? A highly personal GPS, specifically designed for our unique roadmap. Is the Easter journey tricky? Always. Is it a rough road? Do you find potholes and detours and speed bumps? That's what my road looks like. Oh, do we welcome crucifixions because we are so spiritually enlightened and we know that this too is for us. We know that this is for our spiritual good. So here we are saying, bring it on. Not so much. Here's a better question maybe. Would any one of us be who we are today if we had not had our crucifixion experiences, our tomb time experiences? Would any one of us be where we are, be what we are, be who we are? Here is the thought that I would like us to carry into our meditation time. What if Jesus' life message is this? Stuff happens. Stuff happens. I'm here to show you how to live it, how to move through it, and how to use it to be a better, more spiritually conscious person. What if that were the Easter message? Let's relax a little further into our seats, being aware of the wonder of being fully supported in this moment. You didn't have to design the seat. You didn't have to build it. You didn't have to install it. You don't have to vacuum or dust it or maintain it. It's just there. And that's because we live in a friendly universe. So much curriculum, so many opportunities. Each day we get to choose our lens. And I personally prefer the lens of metaphysics because I'm interested in knowing what is in this for me. What am I to understand? Who am I to be in this moment? Because who we are, how we show up, who we are being is right and perfect for us right now. Blessed, right where we are. Picking up the cross, experiencing our trials, carrying that heavy, heavy cross. Maybe we have laid it down. Maybe we have understood now is the time to rest. Now is the time to let this experience wash over us. Now is the time for this experience to move through us on a visceral level. And for the rising up, for the enlightened moment, the awakened consciousness, from that place to the universe, we say, here I am, all of me. Here I am, in the silence, in the stillness, in the place right where divine love is, divine law, right where principle is, divine mind. Here I am. As we move forward from this holy moment on this holy ground, we give thanks for the crucifixion experience. We give thanks for the tomb time. We give thanks for light, enlightenment. We give thanks for awakening, for awareness, for the curriculum, and for the journey. We are grateful. And so it is.